At 1:15 p.m. on July 16, 2011, Tyler Hardely posted a status on Facebook. "Party at my crib tonight, maybe." This seemingly innocent status would soon spiral into a night of unthinkable horror. Tyler Hardely, a Florida teenager with a troubled past, had been grounded recently for indulging in drinking and drug use. His parents, Blake and Mary Jo Hardely, had been worried about him for years. They had tried everything from psychiatrists to substance abuse programs, but nothing seemed to work. That weekend, he was denied the use of his phone and car, let alone the permission to host a party. Tyler's friends knew about his predicament, and they were naturally skeptical when they read his Facebook status. How could a grounded teenager host a party without his parents finding out? A friend even asked him what he would do if his parents came home. His response was chillingly casual. "They won't, trust me," Tyler replied. By 8:15 p.m., Tyler confirmed the party was on. His friends, still doubtful, decided to take their chances. By the stroke of midnight, over 60 people had descended on the Hardely home in Port St. Lucie, turning it into a den of teenage debauchery. The party was getting rowdy, with teenagers smoking inside the house, stubbing out their cigarettes on the walls, and urinating on the neighbors' lawns. At first, Tyler tried to maintain some semblance of control, attempting to stop people from smoking indoors. But as the crowd got drunker and the party rowdier, he gave up. He had been telling people his parents were away in Orlando for the weekend, but as the night wore on, his story started to change. "They don't live here. This is my house," he told one partygoer. As the crowd got drunker and rowdier, Hardly's story about his parents' whereabouts started to change. Hardely pulled his friend Michael Mandel aside and told him the truth. "Mike, I killed my parents." The chilling revelation was met with disbelief. It was an unthinkable act, committed by a teenager who had been spiraling for years. In the days leading up to the murders, Tyler had hinted at his dark intentions to his friends. He shared his desire to kill his parents, a confession that was shrugged off as a disturbing joke. Yet, on the day of the party, he made his twisted fantasy a horrifying reality. Tyler stole his parents' phones, ensuring they couldn't call for help. Around 5 in the afternoon, he ingested ecstasy and armed himself with a hammer from the garage. His mother, Mary Jo, was his first victim. She sat unsuspecting at her computer when Tyler struck her from behind, the blunt force of the hammer taking her life in an instant. The screams of his dying wife drew Blake Hardely into the room. He was met with a sight no parent could ever imagine. His son, the boy he had raised and loved, standing over Mary Jo's lifeless body, a bloody hammer in his hand. Blake's last words to his son were a simple, heartbreaking question: why? But Tyler offered no answer before he beat his father to death. After the brutal attack, Tyler concealed his parents' bodies under towels, dragging them into their bedroom. He hid them beneath a pile of broken dishes, towels, pillowcases, books, and a coffee table. For the next 3 hours, Tyler meticulously cleaned up the evidence of his horrific act, preparing for the party that was to come. After confessing to Michael, Hardely led him to the master bedroom and showed him the gruesome scene. The room was a chilling tableau of violence, with blood splattered across the floor, the duvet, and the door. This was the horrifying reality of what Tyler Hardely had done. The party went on, the revelry echoing through the halls, while the bodies of Blake and Mary Jo Hardely lay concealed just rooms away. Despite the shocking revelation, Michael stayed at the party for another 45 minutes. It's hard to fathom the psychological turmoil he must have been in. Yet he managed to maintain an eerie semblance of normalcy, even taking selfies with the confessed murderer. The party noise grew louder, the laughter rang hollower, but the secret Michael was carrying was far too heavy. His friend, Tyler, had just confessed to a crime so horrifying it was beyond comprehension. Finally, the burden became too much to bear. Michael decided to make an anonymous call to Crime Stoppers. He relayed the chilling confession he'd heard from Tyler about the brutal murder of his parents. Within minutes, the wheels of justice were set into motion. Police arrived at the Hardely residence around 2 in the morning, responding to complaints of noise from the neighbors. At first glance, It was just another teenage party spiraling out of control. They warned Tyler to turn down the volume and left, but they would return. By 4 in the morning, the police were back at the Hardely residence. This time, they weren't there to reprimand a rebellious teenager. They were there to arrest a murderer. Tyler Hardly, just 17 years old, was taken into custody under the charge of murdering his parents. The party was over, and the grim reality was just beginning to set in. 3 years later, in a courtroom filled with the echoes of Tyler's horrific actions, the judge passed down his sentence. Tyler Hardly, a teenager who had thrown a party after committing an unthinkable crime, was sentenced to life in prison. There would be no parole, no second chance at freedom. The judge's words were as cold and unyielding as the prison bars that now separated Tyler from the world outside. He condemned Tyler's actions, calling out the brutality, the heinousness, and the premeditation of his crimes. The gavel fell, sealing Tyler's fate. Hardly was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility for parole for his brutal, heinous, and premeditated attack. In letters to his grandparents, Hardly struggled to come to terms with his actions. The teenager, once lost in a haze of substance abuse and misguided rebellion, found himself mired in a reality far grimmer than any punishment his parents might have doled out. He wrote, "I was just living my life as a normal 17-year-old kid, and next thing I know, I'm in the middle of St. Lucie County Jail." His words echoed the remorse and guilt that had begun to consume him. "I ruined a lot of people's lives and I can't seem to forgive myself. I find myself crying a lot because of all the guilt," he confessed. This wasn't just the regret of a teenager who had thrown a party that got out of hand. This was the profound sorrow of a young man who had irrevocably shattered his life and the lives of those around him. This is the chilling tale of Tyler Hardly, a teenager who committed an unthinkable crime.